let's talk about The Matrix, shall we? Matrix Resurrections is once again directed by Lana Wachowski, and it once again stars Keanu Reeves back again as Thomas Anderson, or rather Neo. It also brings back Carrie-Anne Moss, who is Trinity still, and this movie basically is the story of Neo once again having to go back into the Matrix while also not understanding what the Matrix is again. This movie is disappointing in a lot of different ways, honestly. I mean, just looking from the first movie alone, like, that was groundbreaking for a lot of different reasons, along with its action mostly, and the things that you can do with, the movie. It was something to behold, really. And when this movie was announced, after the trilogy had already ended years ago, I didn't necessarily think that they needed to do another one. And I thought, well, I like Keanu Reeves. Matrix was good before. Didn't get good at the end, obviously. But, maybe they can do something with it. And, no. To start off with everything, the positives that I really have to give this movie is Keanu Reeves is really good. Carrie-Anne Moss is really good. And I do like Yahya Abdul-Mateen II's performance in this movie. However, I didn't think that he necessarily needed to be Morpheus. He does a decent impersonation of Morpheus. But did he need to be him? No. But I thought he did fine in the movie regardless. And I also thought Jessica Henwick, who plays Bugs, is actually pretty decent in this movie as well. She has far more things to do in this movie than I would have expected, which is a nice change of pace. The other person that I kind of had an issue with is Jonathan Groff. He basically plays Agent Smith again, and it's, again, the same instance of, but his performance I didn't really necessarily think was really all that great. But I mean, if you were just going to have Agent Smith in this movie, why didn't you just get Agent Smith again? Or why didn't you just make a different villain? And I just didn't think that his performance for sure didn't land for me, because the weird thing about this movie is that it likes to throw flashbacks at you, mixing it in with the original trilogy. Because, I mean, for hell, the beginning of the movie is just basically Jessica Henwick and this other dude watching the beginning of the Matrix as they're there. So if you're just gonna rewrite it, then get the original actors back, rather than just making new characters. I just see that as a total cop out for this movie. I didn't really enjoy that. And that leads me to the biggest negative about this movie is just how meta it is. If you watch this movie for more than 5 minutes, especially the scene where Neo and Agent Smith are talking in this office, and they reference the fact that Warner Brothers is making them make another movie. They're going to make a fourth Matrix, and they're going to make it with or without you, and they're pulling the strings and all that. It just becomes disjointed to me. There's a fine line that you have to meet when you do meta stuff, right? There has to be a movie to happen along with this. In the same vein of Deadpool, for example. Deadpool breaks the wall constantly in its 2 movies, but there's still a whole movie constructed around it. And yes, there's a little hint, wink, wink, Deadpool's talking to the camera right now, and this movie doesn't really have that all the time. It feels like it's mostly hey, remember the Matrix? Remember the Matrix? Remember the Matrix? Remember the Matrix? A little bit of the movie. Remember the Matrix? Remember the Matrix? It was just if you were just going to remake the Matrix, just remake the Matrix. And deal with the consequences then. Because to do this half-ass sort of semi-reboot, semi-not reboot, and mostly a sequel, I just don't find that entertaining. And what made the first Matrix and, at least the other 2 still or 3, I should say, revolutionary, was the action that was shown in those movies. And For this movie, I mean, I would say honestly the best fight scene that they have is the one where they are fighting in a similar setting that Neo and Mr. Agent Smith had in the beginning of the movie. Like, that's about it, though. I think everything else is just kind of, fine to a little bit above average, for Hollywood action, nowadays. I wouldn't say that nothing really sticks out as like positive. And I would also say that there are some weird choppy editing moments that they like to use for the slow motion aspects of this movie. And that stuff, like, I was thinking that my TV was lagging. I honest to God thought that like HBO Max was just having weird server issues. I didn't expect it to be like a legitimate thing that they, edited on this film and put out in a movie theater, let alone HBO Max. And that's what's so disheartening about it is like there's these things that really bring down this movie in its action and its story of like it's being meta and we're basically rewriting the Matrix, but we're also making a sequel to the Matrix. But the concepts that they have in this movie along with that are really entertaining because if you really wanted to see this meta stuff happen, I think they could have done it a better way though. I think it's just beating a dead horse at one point in this movie. And I'm kind of like, okay, we get it. We are referencing the Matrix, like this isn't like something that just doesn't exist in this universe. Like it is a legit thing that they know about. And I think the concept of that sort of stuff can work, and some other aspects along with Trinity and Neo and Morpheus and all that could work. I just don't think it was executed that well. So in the end, the Matrix Resurrections is basically Hollywood nowadays, and that's really tough to say because when you think of the Matrix, you think revolutionary. You think stepping up your game, basically, like what they did in the first movie for sure changed a lot. And to see its fall from grace, not, entirely, the studio's fault, obviously. I think, when they did the next two movies, it did take a nosedive in quality from then. But to just do another movie just because, rather than just recreating it and making your own story once again with a similar name, I think that calls for a huge disappointment. I'm going to give Matrix Resurrections 2 stars. Thank you guys so much for watching. Look forward to more reviews very soon, and I'll talk to y'all next time.